Annenberg Media.
By the National Science Foundation, America's investment in the future. By the American Society for Microbiology. And by the Office of Biological and Environmental Research of the United States Department of Energy. Additional funding was provided by the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. This program has been made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
The outermost layer of the human body is home to millions of microorganisms that depend on our bodies for their own survival. These various microbes live on the surface and in the crevices of our skin, as well as in our hair follicles. To defend their home and primary food source from an onslaught of outside contaminants, they create a protective web to shield us from many harmful agents. However, sometimes an invading organism can penetrate our external defenses by finding its way in through our body's natural openings: the eye, nose, mouth, and other bodily openings. On other occasions, an opportunity presents itself for a potentially harmful organism to enter the body. Then what? Well, our body defends itself, that's what. An invading organism can trigger our body's coordinated multi-level defense system, referred to as nonspecific resistance and the immune response.
The human immune response is a very complicated system. The human body has many barriers to infection that we rely upon to protect us from harmful organisms. Now, a mere shaving cut is unlikely to cause a major infection. But harmful microbes can, in fact, enter our bodies via seemingly minor cuts or through contaminated food and water. Our bodies are well prepared to defend themselves against such exposures. I'm Jim Leinfelder. In this episode, we'll explore the human immune system, which consists of a complex series of defense mechanisms that protect us from foreign invaders. Our system is armed with a passive first line of defense, as well as a more aggressive second and third line. The first line of defense consists of a number of factors: an intact skin layer, mucous membranes, body secretions, and billions of microbes, called normal flora, that naturally live all over our body's exposed surfaces.
As we've seen, a variety of microbial populations make up our own personal microbial ecosystems, filling every nook and cranny. We've evolved together, interacting like seasoned dance partners. In fact, the number of microbes traveling around with just one person actually outnumber the Earth's human population. These microbes are for the most part friendly, providing us with a level of defense against other microbes. The microbes that inhabit the human skin are mostly bacteria and fungi, which live on water and nutrients from our body fluids. Microbial communities on the skin vary like the topography of the Earth. Dry areas of the back are sparsely populated, like a desert. While under the arm, life abounds, as in a tropical forest. These microbes protect us from being colonized by harmful microbes that may pass to us from other people. There are 600 to 700 species of organisms inhabiting us that we know about. Each person's normal flora is first acquired after we leave the safe, sterile environment of our mother's womb. Though we're born sterile, from the moment of birth through the early stages of life, we receive friendly microbes from our mother and other people who care for us. Microbes pass to us from the hand, mouth, and breast. Our relationship with these microbes is reciprocal. We provide them a home and food, and they protect us and provide us with nutrients. When we leave our mother's womb, our immune system is still fairly immature and undeveloped. Our immune system immediately begins to see and sample unfamiliar microbes. In this way, our bodies begin to recognize the microbes it sees from day one and can soon distinguish between friendly and harmful microorganisms. While there are some organisms that cause disease, there's a far greater number that are a part of us from soon after we're born and stay with us throughout our lives.
The intricate protective web created by the normal flora and an intact skin surface helps to seal us in and seal out contaminants. Our normal flora even release chemicals that can destroy some potentially harmful bacteria. Although this external defense may be very effective, it's not always foolproof. Sometimes an invading bacterium or virus can find its way into the body through the eyes or mucous membranes of the nose and mouth. When a harmful organism does find its way inside our body via a puncture wound or a natural opening, our bodies aggressively defend themselves in an all-out war.
Most microorganisms that penetrate our outer defenses are simply looking for a means to feed and reproduce. Infection, disease, or the damage or destruction of any healthy human cells is an unintentional byproduct for the invader's reproductive process. But in order for any of us to remain healthy, an immune response is needed to fight back. There are a variety of ways and areas of the body where replication of an invader can occur. A virus or a bacterium can threaten our bodies once they've found a way inside. As we've learned, a viral infection is the result of a virus's reproductive process. Once it enters a living cell, the virus hijacks the cell's machinery, its proteins and energy. Through this infection, a virus can make as many as 1 million copies of itself in hours. The once healthy human cell is destroyed, and the multitudes of virus copies now need to infect other healthy cells to ensure their own survival. We've also learned that a bacterium contains its own machinery to grow and reproduce. A bacterium grows and divides into 2 complete bacteria. These bacteria continue to multiply, increasing the population exponentially. Some types of bacteria produce damaging toxins. Additional toxins can be released when the invaded cells and the invader die. Some of these toxins can poison and destroy healthy human tissue. As the number of harmful organisms and toxins continue to increase, more healthy tissue is in danger. The white cells of the immune system's second and third lines of defense perform a coordinated interactive defense effort, bent on not only destroying an invading pathogen, but also preparing for defense against any future exposures to that same organism. The second line of defense is referred to as phagocytosis. our damaged tissues release chemicals that attract phagocytic white blood cells to the site of infection. These scavengers are roving cleanup machines that move through the body with an amoeboid motion and gobble substances that are foreign to us. Phagocytic cells, including macrophages, attack all invaders. This initial response is referred to as a nonspecific response. Phagocytes immediately recognize the invading organism as non-self and mount a counterattack. Stanley Falco is a microbiologist at Stanford University who has spent his career studying the relationship between microbes and humans. He has a particular fascination with bacteria.
It doesn't have a brain, but it knows where it is very accurately by constantly measuring things like the temperature, the acidity of its environment.
One of Stan Falco's students, Denise Monak, attached a small video camera to a microscope and filmed the interaction of bacteria with a macrophage, the killer cell, in real time.
I can't remember if this is the one that goes into a tubular...
That's right. This is the mystery now.
Right.
And when you watch this interaction, you see the bacteria coming in contact, and quickly the cell, it gobbles them up. It's almost like it's eating peanuts. I mean, it's taking them in as quickly as it can. And most bacteria that fall into the clutches of a macrophage die a horrible death.
Foreign microbes are engulfed by phagocytes, like macrophages and neutrophils, which then use enzymes and harsh chemicals to kill the invading cells. Macrophages break the microbe into small bits, called antigens. These processed antigens provide a link between the second and third lines of defense. Like a trophy from its victorious battle, the macrophage displays antigens of the destroyed invader in its outer membrane. Then, the macrophage will present the processed organism to cells called lymphocytes. If the phagocytic cells are unable to defeat the invader on their own, then our bodies will move to the next level of response, our specific immune system.
Hey! The conflict between an invading organism and the immune system is a lot like the competition in a football game. Sometimes the best offense is a great defense. To defeat its opponent, the immune system counters with a multi-level defense. We've seen that the first line of defense tries to block the invader at the level of entry. The second, phagocytosis, is a generalized or nonspecific defense response, sort of like a zone defense. Phagocytosis attempts to both neutralize invading organisms and prevent them from damaging the body.
The third line of defense is a specific defense response. Here, the macrophage, with the processed organism marking its membrane, huddles up with lymphocytes to precisely identify the type of invading organism and then plan the strategy for the next play in the game. A specific antibody response designed to destroy that particular invader. Within the huddle, many of the lymphocytes become plasma cells, while others become memory cells.
Ready? Right.
The plasma cells, secreting the specific antibody required to defeat the invading pathogen, move into position for battle. The memory cells retain the memory of the exposure to this specific antigen and then remain dormant on the sidelines, ready and waiting for any future exposures to this same harmful invader. Plasma cells have a shorter lifespan than memory cells. In a future encounter, the memory cells immediately become new plasma cells, secreting the appropriate antibodies.
Our second and third lines of defense work in tandem to identify the particular antigen, mount a specific response, and establish a memory of the event to prepare for any future exposures to the same invader.
Beside antibodies, our immune system mobilizes killer cells that can attack virally infected cells or cancer cells. Here, the smaller T lymphocyte attacks and destroys the larger virally infected cell. And here, several T lymphocytes attack cancer cells. Antibodies and cellular immunity are both required to rid our bodies of harmful infectious agents and abnormal cells. The white cells patrol, seeking out the invaders. The virus, seen here as black dots, infects the cells that line the blood vessels. Besides antibodies, specialized immune cells called T killer cells can push through and emit strong chemicals that destroy our cell with the virus inside.
Even though our bodies have developed strategies to protect us from invaders, microorganisms have developed strategies of their own to protect themselves from our defenses. For example, everybody's favorite picnic pal, salmonella. Organisms like salmonella can get into our bodies when we ingest improperly prepared foods. I think this is all right.
So when you do your standard searches...
Stanley Falco and his graduate students are learning how some microbes have evolved the capability to outwit the human immune system. The focus of their research is Salmonella bacteria, which commonly causes diarrhea as well as typhoid fever. Salmonella, seen here reproducing at 360 times normal speed, invades human cells to get its food, killing some cells, but not killing its human host. Salmonella bacteria have learned to defeat the body's defense mechanisms. They enter our body with contaminated food or water. In the mouth, Salmonella survive competing organisms, sticky saliva, and bacteria-killing chemicals. In the stomach, they survive in an acid bath. In the small intestine, they survive detergent-like bile salts designed to rip microbes apart. They sense chemical signals and aim toward a specialized barrier of the immune system. This is Salmonella's skill. It's learned to cross the barrier. After successfully surviving an onslaught of obstacles, the Salmonella encounters the macrophage, a scavenger cell designed to destroy invaders. However, Salmonella has a unique ability that allows it to not only survive inside the macrophage and reproduce, but also to kill the macrophage and burst out to infect more cells. Salmonella bacteria is more the exception than the rule. When encountering a macrophage, most bacteria and other foreign microorganisms are destroyed.
Salmonella responds by turning on new sets of genes that change the macrophage. And the end result really is the organism grows in the macrophage and eventually kills the macrophage.
Although the macrophage may die, we normally don't. Salmonella has successfully evolved to infect us without killing everyone it infects, ensuring its survival.
This interaction, usually it's a draw. The organism got food, it made more of itself and passed on to a new person to make more of itself. And we're happy because we now recognize this organism and will be immune to it. We've really just begun to understand the real kinds of complexities that exist in this life that we have with these organisms that inhabit us.
Based on what we've learned about human defense mechanisms, the medical community can now provide patients with acquired immunity to certain microorganisms in the form of vaccinations.
By introducing a vaccine, we are educating our immune system to respond as though it has seen a particular pathogen before. In effect, developing memory cells in the third line of defense to immediately respond with the appropriate white cells and antibodies.
When someone is infected with a germ, a bacteria, or a virus, a normal consequence of that is that the body's immune system produces antibodies to fight off that infection. So that if you're re-exposed to that germ, to that virus or bacteria, you won't get sick the second time. A vaccine basically circumvents that first need to become sick by exposing the body's immune system to an antigen, to a part of that germ or that virus, allowing the body to make antibodies and having those antibodies in place to prevent infection in the future. We are on the verge right now of eliminating polio from the world the way that smallpox was eliminated in 1976. There are a small number of countries in Southern Asia and in Africa where polio is still endemic, still occurs. It's been eliminated from the rest of the world, and people are predicting that by the year 2000, 2001, polio will be eradicated from the world.
Today, it's increasingly difficult to get patients to accept vaccination. This is a growing problem that is ironically a direct result of the outstanding success that we've had with our immunization programs. Many diseases have disappeared due to effective vaccines, and most people today have no memory that measles, diphtheria, and whooping cough are devastating killers.
If you walked up to a mother or father in the 1920s or 1930s and talked to them about a way that their child could not develop diphtheria or measles or mumps or polio, they would literally beg you for whatever it was that could prevent that from happening, because people from that time period recognized that these diseases that we now think of as anachronisms and things that are maybe not that bad were serious and deadly killers of children. There's basically three approaches to making vaccines. The first is to attenuate, that is to make less virulent, a virus or bacteria. Put that into a person, doesn't cause disease, but causes the body to make antibodies. The second is to take a virus or bacteria and kill it, and inject that killed particle into the body and cause the body to make antibodies against it. The third, maybe more sophisticated, is to figure out what it is on the outer coating, what proteins or sugars it is on the outer coating of the bacteria or virus that are causing the body to make antibodies. To isolate that, to purify it, or to manufacture it de novo, and just inject that single protein or sugar into the body and have the body make antibodies against it. There are, I think, a couple of reasons why infectious disease is more prevalent in developing countries. One is because vaccines may not be available to those folks. A second is because some of the public health standards that we take for granted in this country, clean water, safe food, are not the case. The reality is that vaccine-preventable diseases are still common in countries outside the United States, and particularly in developing countries. Although we live in a community, in a state, in the United States perhaps, we actually truly live in a global village, and that the way to prevent disease ultimately is not only to prevent that disease in our community, but to prevent it around the world.
We are destined to live in a contaminated world. We are not going to live in a sterile environment. The evolution of our interaction between microbes and humans is in a constant state of flux. And so I think that we will, as we have in the past, constantly be surprised by new kinds of interactions that we will view as disease and the microbes will view as survival.
Our relationship with microbes is a constant balancing act. Our bodies continually fend off the advances of ever-evolving microbes. We'll never eliminate them, so there's a constant give and take. In the next episode, we'll see what happens when that balance tips in favor of certain microbes, and the result is disease.
Annenberg Media.
By the National Science Foundation, America's investment in the future. By the American Society for Microbiology. And by the Office of Biological and Environmental Research of the United States Department of Energy. Additional funding was provided by the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. This program has been made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.